Have you ever felt that sudden jolt of anxiety right when you're about to take a massive leap? Quitting a soul-sucking job, moving to an unfamiliar city, or even sharing a long-buried dream with someone. It's that split second when your heart races, your palms sweat, and a voice inside whispers, "Turn back before it's too late." Most of us take that rush of fear as a sign to slam the brakes, convinced it means we're headed for disaster. But here's the twist no one tells you. That flash of panic could be the very proof that you're onto something big. Surprising? Absolutely. And if you lean in and examine it more closely, you might discover that ego-driven dread often shows up when you're right on the threshold of authentic transformation. Think about it. Why would your mind suddenly start screaming, "Abort mission," the moment you decide to level up? The ego is wired to protect you from the unknown. It loves comfort, routine, and the illusion of control. The minute you threaten its stability, say by aiming for a promotion, pivoting careers, or pouring your heart into a new passion, it blasts you with an emotional siren, waving every red flag it can muster. Yet, some of your best life moments happen precisely in these tense, uncertain times. Instead of seeing that panic as a stop sign, try viewing it as a signal that you're on the brink of something extraordinary. Because the reality is, if you weren't about to disrupt the old patterns, your ego wouldn't be so desperate to hold you back. The ego has one primary job: keep you alive by minimizing risk. When you think about it, it's an ancient survival mechanism. Centuries ago, risk meant saber-toothed tigers or poisonous berries. Today, risk could mean leaving a secure paycheck or walking away from a familiar yet stagnant situation. In both cases, the ego interprets a threat and shouts, "Retreat." But here's the catch. While this protective instinct can be beneficial in truly dangerous scenarios, it can also chain you to a life that's too small for your real potential. Once you understand this hidden motive, that your ego equates any uncertainty with danger, you'll see how it's been steering your choices. It prefers the boredom of safety to the exhilaration of unknown success. If you felt stuck, it might be because you've been listening to that alarm too literally. The irony is, the same voice that's trying to shield you from failure also shields you from excitement, fulfillment, and the kind of personal expansion that only happens outside your comfort zone. Recognizing that the ego's panic is less about genuine peril and more about maintaining the familiar can radically shift your perspective. Suddenly, that knot in your stomach starts to feel less like doom and more like the electricity of an impending breakthrough. You know that tight feeling in your chest? The one that shows up right before you do something new and daring. That sensation can be transformed into pure fuel. Instead of letting it paralyze you, consider panic as energy, a rush of adrenaline designed to sharpen your focus and prepare you for action. Athletes and performers often describe how nerves help them deliver peak performances. What if your nerves could do the same? This doesn't mean panic feels fantastic. In truth, it can be uncomfortable or even terrifying. But discomfort isn't always a red flag. Often, it's a symptom of growth. The more you challenge your boundaries, the louder the ego yells. Why? Because stepping into unfamiliar territory forces you to abandon old labels and self-limiting beliefs. Each time you power through that wave of dread, you loosen the ego's grip. And every time you do that, you tap into new strengths, insights, and opportunities that you never would have encountered if you'd retreated. Rather than fight against the panic, try listening to what it's really saying. You're entering new ground. That's not a warning to turn back. It's an invitation to press forward. When the ego decides to wage war against your ambition, it deploys a set of powerful weapons: doubt, perfectionism, and overthinking. Doubt targets your sense of worth, whispering, "You're not skilled enough," or "Everyone else is way ahead of you." Perfectionism sets absurdly high standards, telling you that you must master every detail before taking even the smallest step. And if those fail, overthinking swoops in like a relentless drill sergeant, bombarding you with what-if scenarios until you're paralyzed by indecision. The impact? You might find yourself stuck in an endless loop of planning, researching, or waiting for a perfect moment that never arrives. What's surprising is that these fear tactics masquerade as rational caution. They seem like legitimate concerns. After all, wanting to do your best or gathering information can be a good thing. Yet the key difference is how they make you feel. If you notice that your worry is actually draining your courage rather than enhancing your preparedness, then you're dealing with the ego's manufactured roadblocks, not genuine readiness. Once you spot the pattern, it becomes easier to dodge the trap by simply acting, even if you don't feel 100% ready. In truth, no one ever feels fully prepared for life's biggest opportunities, and that's precisely why they're worth pursuing. It's easy to assume that top achievers, athletes, entrepreneurs, artists are somehow immune to this ego panic. But stories abound of brilliant people who faced crippling terror just before their biggest successes. Take an inventor with a history of failed prototypes who nearly abandoned his work right before stumbling upon a world-changing design. Or a future best-selling author who seriously considered deleting the entire draft of a novel that would go on to inspire millions. In almost every success story, you'll find a chapter about uncertainty and fear. The difference is that these individuals didn't treat that fear as a deal breaker. Instead, they recognized it for what it was, a natural part of daring to dream big. Fear is often the loudest when you're standing at the edge of uncharted territory, and that's actually great news. If you weren't pushing beyond your usual limits, why would the ego bother trying to reel you back? Each time you hear that screaming voice, remember that you're in good company. Countless visionaries have walked that same line between terror and triumph, and it's on that line that life-changing breakthroughs tend to occur. So Anne, how do you handle the ego's meltdown without letting it stop your progress? One practical strategy is to break your big leap into smaller, more manageable steps. If you're launching a business, for instance, start with one market test instead of obsessing over a fully polished business plan. If you're sharing creative work, show it to a trusted friend first, rather than waiting to feel perfectly ready for a massive public launch. Each small victory adds a layer of confidence, reminding you that fear doesn't have to dictate your every move. Another method is simply naming the fear. Write it down. "I'm scared people will laugh at my new idea," or "I'm worried this change will make me lose everything." Confronting the monster in your mind can shrink it to a more realistic size. Then ask yourself, if this worst-case scenario came true, would it really be the end? Usually, you'll see that even if things go sideways, you can adapt, learn, and move on. Finally, it can help to celebrate small wins along the way. Recognizing each mini breakthrough trains your mind to associate risk-taking with a sense of achievement, rather than an emotional beating. In doing so, you subtly but powerfully retrain your ego, reassuring it that stepping out of the familiar doesn't automatically spell disaster. The stories we tell ourselves are incredibly powerful. If your narrative is, "I always choke under pressure," or "things never work out for me," your ego will find ways to confirm that story. It's part of a mental filter called confirmation bias. we tend to spot evidence that supports what we already believe. But here's the good news. You can rewrite that script. Start replacing defeatist thoughts with something more balanced. Instead of, "I can't handle this," try, "I've handled plenty of challenges before, so I'll figure this out too." The aim is not blind positivity. It's authenticity and empowerment. By gradually shifting the narrative, you create a new mental backdrop against which panic and self-doubt appear less overwhelming. You begin to expect that you can recover from setbacks, adapt to surprises, and maybe even thrive in chaos. Over time, these revised stories become your default setting. Then, when the ego flares up with a fear-based analysis scenario, you'll have a stronger counterbalance, an internal voice that says, "This panic is just proof that I'm stepping into a bigger version of myself. I can handle it." It's a subtle but monumental transformation that affects how you approach every challenge, large or small. Pain and discomfort are some of life's greatest teachers. Unfortunately, many people mistake discomfort for a sign they're doing something wrong, when in reality, it might just mean they're doing something new. Growth is rarely neat and tidy. It involves outgrowing old habits, shedding outdated beliefs, and learning new skills that may initially feel awkward. Think of it like stretching muscles you've barely used. The soreness you feel the next day is evidence of progress, not a sign to stop exercising forever. By reframing your discomfort as a signal of expansion, you turn it from an enemy into an ally. Each time that queasy feeling surfaces, whether you're about to pitch an idea or have a vulnerable conversation, you can remind yourself, this is the price of leveling up. Interestingly, when you stick with it, you develop a tolerance for that kind of tension. The same situation that once threw you into a tailspin eventually becomes manageable, even routine. That's the beauty of growth. What once felt impossible can become your new normal, and the ego's alarm bells lose much of their volume. If there's one insight you take away from this entire discussion, let it be this. Your ego's panic is not your enemy. It's not some cosmic sign that you're doomed to fail, nor does it mean you're unworthy. In most cases, it simply reveals that you're stepping out of the safe territory your mind has patrolled for years. And when you step out of that territory, you open doors to experiences and successes that would otherwise remain locked. Yes, it's uncomfortable, and yes, it can be scary. But feeling shaky right before a leap is the hallmark of truly meaningful growth. So the next time your gut twists in knots, or your mind conjures up 1,000 reasons to quit, pause and ask yourself, what if this isn't a warning, but a green light? Because often, the loudest panic arises when you're on the threshold of a reality far greater than the one you're leaving behind. Embrace that moment. Use it as fuel rather than fear. Let your ego know you appreciate its caution, but you're ready to evolve. And as you push through, you'll find that the path forward, though challenging, offers the kind of deep satisfaction and purpose that playing it safe never could. If this message resonated with you, remember that we're all on this journey together. Embracing the ego's panic as a sign of progress can catapult you into new realms of courage and possibility. So don't shy away from sharing your thoughts or personal stories in the comments. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. And if you'd like to keep exploring mind-shifting perspectives like this, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated with every new release. Your leap forward might be just a click away.